Tonight on Steelers Talk, we have the latest Aaron Rodgers injury update after he broke his wrist versus the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday afternoon. Then Jamar Chase got his just desserts as he has now been suspended for one game by the National Football League. Then also, I've got my film takeaways, offense and defense. I know you guys love those takeaways. I got the opportunity to sit down, watch the film today. Lots of takeaways from the film this week, guys, on offense and defense. Make sure you guys stick around for my takeaways from this Week 11 win. Now, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We got daily Steelers videos on this channel every single day. At least two we put on this channel every single day. We go live. We're going to be going live tomorrow starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time here on Steelers Talk. Talk about the latest surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, we go live during every single Steelers game for our live watch parties and all that content, guys. It's 100% free. That's why we have over 100,000 subscribers here on Steelers Talk. We are currently the largest individually run Steelers news program anywhere on the YouTube platform. So if you guys want to join the largest community of Steelers fans anywhere here on YouTube, make sure you guys click that subscribe button and join our family today. All right, so now let's get to the update here on A-Rod, where Aaron Rapoport of NFL Network said today that Aaron Rodgers is quote-unquote pushing to play this week versus the Chicago Bears despite having a small fracture in his wrist suffered yesterday versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This is what Rapoport had to say earlier today. Aaron Rodgers is going to have tests this morning, talking about this morning, just to determine how long he is going to miss, if he's going to miss time. Aaron Rodgers does have a tiny fracture in his left wrist. That is what the x-ray at the stadium revealed yesterday. Aaron Rodgers, to my understanding, has told people close to him that he will be back very soon. He has told more people close to him that he does not want to miss a game. He is pushing to play this week versus the Bears. I know it kind of seems crazy because he broke a bone in his wrist, but it is his left wrist, meaning not his throwing wrist. If he's able to grip and if he is able to receive the ball on the snap, it is actually possible that Rodgers could play this week. I had someone tell me he is essentially 50-50 to play this week versus Chicago. So it sounds bad, but Aaron Rodgers does want to play and is trying to see how he could do it for the Steelers. And I think we all know why Aaron Rodgers would love to play this week. It might be his last opportunity to play at Soldier Field there in Chicago, and he loves playing against the Chicago Bears, obviously, especially in the Windy City where he's had a lot of success over the years. He famously said, "I own you" to the Chicago Bears fans a couple years back, and you know that he's had this one circled on his schedule here for quite a while. But also, Rodgers is a very tough player, and he doesn't want to let his teammates down, and he doesn't want to miss any time. Last year, he played quite a bit on some very big injuries to his knee, to his hamstring. All right, he played on a partially torn hamstring with the Jets for a long portion of last season. He dealt with a lot of injuries, and he played through all of them, played every single game of the 2024 schedule for the Jets. But, going into this game, after having that finger kind of jam injury that he had a couple weeks ago before the Colts game, and now he has this broken wrist, I don't want him to be limited out there. If he's not able to do everything that the offense usually asks him to do, so, take snaps from under center, take snaps from shotgun, all right? I don't want him to be out there, plain simply, guys. If he can't take snaps under center, if he can't do everything that you really have to do as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would rather just go with Mason Rudolph and have the full playbook at my disposal as opposed to just having a shotgun-only offense with Aaron Rodgers playing on a broken wrist, right? If he's healthy and if he's good enough to go and he can take snaps from under center and all that stuff, fine, play Aaron Rodgers. That's perfectly fine with me. But, if he is not playing well and, he's not feeling well and all this different stuff, I would just go with Mason Rudolph. I think that I trust him quite a bit. He's a really good number 2 quarterback option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know this team can win games with him at quarterback, so I don't think the Steelers need to, necessarily rush Aaron back or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what Aaron's kind of recovery timetable looks like here and whether or not he's going to be able to play versus the Chicago Bears this weekend. So who starts Sunday? Predict it for me down there in the comment section. Type AR for Aaron Rodgers or MR for Mason Rudolph. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time by letting me know who the QB1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be in the Windy City on Sunday. Now, this is something that I said on the postgame show yesterday, guys, and I'm glad that the NFL went through with this. Jamar Chase, who spit on Jalen Ramsey in the middle of the game yesterday, leading to Ramsey throwing a punch at Chase and being ejected from the game and incurring a 15-yard penalty that benefited the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase is now being suspended for that. It's going to be one game by the National Football League, and of course he didn't talk to the media today, and he's appealing the suspension, but he's not going to win it. I think that this just makes a lot of sense. Jalen Carter got ejected from a game for spitting at Dak Prescott. It's only fair, in my opinion, that Jamar Chase suffers the same penalty for doing the same thing to Jalen Ramsey. And as far as Ramsey goes, guys, he already paid the price, in my opinion. He had to sit out the rest of that game for, frankly, a pretty appropriate response. If someone spits on you, man, I think you have every right to retaliate and let them know that is not going to fly with me, all right? So I think that Jalen Ramsey definitely has faced the punishment that he faced, and he shouldn't get any more from the National Football League, and it doesn't seem like at this point that's coming down the pike. So Jamar Chase will miss next week's game for the Cincinnati Bengals, but some good news on this front is that he'll be back on Thanksgiving to take on the Baltimore Ravens. So that gives the Bengals, and maybe even Joe Burrow, who could be back at that point, a greater chance to take down the Baltimore Ravens. And, of course, the more the Ravens lose, the better chance the Steelers have of winning an AFC North championship here in 2025. So coming up next here on Steelers Talk, talking about the AFC North again. I'm going to be talking about my film takeaways, offense and defense, talking about Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, their performances, as well as the offense and defense in general for the black and gold based on my film study earlier today. But before we get into the rest of today's show, guys, I want to tell you about our sponsor today at Harry's. And I don't have to tell you guys that maneuvering the men's razor space nowadays is a bit of a nightmare. The quality products are always super expensive, and the refills for those quality products are equally expensive and equally ridiculous. And when you try to save a little bit of money, you get stuck with really dull razors that you can only really use once, and it irritates your skin. That's exactly why I switched to Harry's Plus, and I haven't looked back since. Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face, refined blade tech for closer, smoother shaves, and a weighted metal handle, which is Harry's heaviest handle ever for added control and comfort. But I think the best part about Harry's Plus is how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany, no outsourcing and no middlemen, and because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they keep costs low and pass the savings on to you, the customer. And if you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right, no questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving them a shot. And just to show you guys that I actually use and love this product, I have my Harry's Plus razor with me here today. And I just love this product, guys, because I love the premium feel of the metal handle. I mean, they've got plastic handles as well, but it's a little bit lighter and it doesn't quite feel as heavy in your hand, and I like that premium quality kind of feel, as well as the German engineered blades, that they use with this, with Harry's Plus here. It gives you a barbershop quality shave at a fraction of the cost, and it really is the best razor on the market, in my opinion. I can't recommend it enough. So for a limited time only, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Big thank you to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Starting with my offensive film takeaways here, guys, I want to start with this because I've been seeing this particular narrative out there quite a lot on Steelers Twitter today, which is that Aaron Rodgers holds the ball for too long. He creates his own pressure, and it's killing the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, all right? And I've been seeing this a lot because, frankly, this particular narrative could potentially fit with the way Rodgers played against the Cincinnati Bengals, okay? This particular game, Aaron Rodgers had an average time to throw of 3.49 seconds. That is forever, all right? That is a lot of time for an average time to throw for any quarterback, let alone Aaron Rodgers, who usually does a good job getting the ball out quickly. And his previous high on the season was over a half second less against the Cincinnati Bengals, actually, back in Week 7 with 2.91 average time to throw. Okay, so, this has not been something that Rodgers has been holding the ball forever all season long. This has not been something that we've seen on Rodgers' tape or in his numbers as the season has gone on. And honestly, guys, even in terms of yesterday, like he wasn't even pressured like that much. People were talking about how Rodgers was like walking into pressure all the time, and it was just absolutely terrible, and he's got happy feet and all this different stuff. He was only pressured on less than 30% of his dropbacks, which if you don't know, that's not very much. Like the NFL average is like 35, 36%. That's not really that high. It's a little high for Aaron Rodgers because he's actually the least pressured quarterback in the National Football League this year. But, it's not something that's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is getting a ton of pressure that he's walking himself into. That's just not what's happening out on the football field when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, guys. And you look at, the season averages this year, Aaron Rodgers is still the fastest average time to throw out of any quarterback in the National Football League this year, according to Next Gen Stats. And he also has the lowest pressure rate this season at 28.9%, and that number is from Sports Info Solutions. All right, so this is not an issue with Aaron Rodgers in terms of walking into pressure, being pressured too much, all this different stuff. That's not the issue with Aaron Rodgers at this point. But I will say Aaron Rodgers does need to play better, all right? You have to be able to acknowledge that he has just not played as well over the last month as he did, in the early parts of the season. Now, some people might say that's because he's getting older, but something that I wonder here, guys, and that this is something that kind of occurred to me today. Guys, remember when he jammed his finger in warmups versus the Indianapolis Colts with Zach Frazier? Could that be affecting his accuracy in his play? Well, you look at the numbers, before the injury and then after the injury occurred, it's a lot different, guys. It really is, okay? Before the injury, Rodgers was top half of the league, 14th in adjusted EPA per play. Since then, he's not even in the top 32 among quarterbacks, all right? Then you get to the success rate, around the same, okay? But then the accuracy, completion percentage over expected, all right? 8th in the league, top 10 in this category in accuracy the first 8 weeks, and then after he jams his finger, it goes all the way down to not even inside the top 30. Is that a coincidence? I'm not sure it really is. The yards per attempt go from 15th to 29th, and then the passer rating goes from top 10. I mean, remember, guys, we were talking about Aaron Rodgers just a few weeks ago as a top 10 quarterback in terms of passer rating. Over the last 3 weeks, he hasn't even been able to crack the top 25. So some people might say it's because he's getting older, but I do think that that jammed finger that he suffered before the Colts game has affected his play more than he has let on. And what I want right now, guys, from Aaron Rodgers is I want him to take his time, and I want him to get better, all right? I want that wrist to heal up. I want that finger to get back to 100% because he's not playing at 100% right now, and it's affecting the team, and it's affecting the offense as a whole. And we know Mason Rudolph is more than capable of manning the ship while he gets back to 100%. So that would be my recommendation to A-Rod. I know he wants to be out there. I know he wants to play every last down of football that he can before he retires. But I think for the betterment of the team, he needs to take some time here, get better, so that we can get the old Aaron Rodgers that we saw, a couple weeks back, as opposed to the one we've seen over the last 3 weeks. Then, switching gears here from Aaron Rodgers to the rest of the offense as a whole here. And talking about Mason Rudolph. And a lot of people are talking about how they want Rudolph to be the long-term starter here for the rest of the season. Bench Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the year. Mason Rudolph is the better quarterback. Well, I want to provide some color for you guys and some context to what Mason Rudolph actually did versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, we can take a look at his surface level numbers, and you look at these, and you're like, oh my goodness, Mason Rudolph way better than Aaron Rodgers, right? Completing 3/4 of his passes, 127 yards and a half, a touchdown with no picks, all right? He only had really 2 drives, and the Steelers scored on both of those drives, right? So I think Mason Rudolph did play better than Aaron Rodgers yesterday. I will fully admit that. I think he actually played pretty decently, and he executed the offense pretty well, especially on a day where, there's lots of wind and it wasn't the greatest day to throw the football. But we also have to put that into some context here where they only scored 10 points in the half, the same amount that Aaron Rodgers and the offense scored in the first half. And then the average depth of target, all right, not the yards per attempt, the average depth of target there from Mason Rudolph was 2.9 yards. That was the lowest in the National Football League this week by a wide margin. The next lowest was Matthew Stafford at 5.2. So that just shows you just how short Mason Rudolph was dumping the ball off. And then a lot of times it was Darnell Washington or Kenneth Gainwell getting big gains after the catch, and it wasn't really Mason pushing the ball down the field. Also, Mason only faced a 12.5% pressure rate despite having a 3.11 average time to throw. So he was holding the ball for quite a while, but the protection was holding up for him. Whereas with Aaron Rodgers, he had the about 30% pressure rate. So Rudolph had the better protection. Then also 119 of Mason's passing yards. All right, I think he had 127 yards on the day. 119 of those came after the catch. That just shows you, man, that it was all yak for Mason Rudolph yesterday for the most part. And then he had multiple first downs on checkdowns on 3rd and long. Like he would throw the ball to Kenneth Gainwell like 17 yards away from the line to gain, and he would pick up the first down. That's not necessarily Mason Rudolph. That's more the offensive playmakers, finding ways to move the chains. And then also, when he did throw the ball down the field, he had his fair share of misses. He underthrew a DK Metcalf on a back shoulder. He threw it behind Jonnu Smith on an in route. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination yesterday, guys. And, it's just one half too, right? So I love Mason as a quality backup. The team loves Mason as a quality backup. And I've said on this show, if Rodgers is not ready to go this week, play Mason Rudolph. He's more than serviceable. But I'm not at the point yet after just one half of football to say Aaron Rodgers sucks, bench him for the rest of the season, play Mason Rudolph. He's the guy that can get the job done for us in the postseason. I'm not there yet. And, we can have a discussion if he continues to win and plays really well these next few weeks. But as of right now, I don't think there's enough there to say Mason should be the full-time starter. Then we get to, just the passing game in general. And whether it's Rodgers or whether it's Rudolph, this offense is too reliant on yards after the catch. Now, it's nice that you've got guys like Jaylen Warren and Darnell Washington and DK Metcalf and all these guys that can get some nice yak for you. But it's just such a high percentage of the passing yards for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year are coming after the catch. This was a great tweet and great stat from Michael Florio that was tweeted out earlier today. He says, so far in 2025, 71.5% of the Steelers' passing yards have come after the catch. Not only is every other team in the National Football League this year below 60% this season, but that's the highest mark in the Next Gen Stats era, which began in 2016. So this is just an ungodly amount of yards coming after the catch. Now, the Steelers, I think, are putting themselves in positions to have success after the catch, but also you have to be able to stretch the field vertically to open up opportunities underneath as well. And they're just not throwing the ball down the field enough at this point in the season, whether it's Rodgers or whether it's Rudolph, and you got to find some solutions to be able to do that as the season goes on if you want to have a more complete passing attack here in Pittsburgh down the stretch. Then I think a big change this week compared to the Chargers game in Week 10 was that the Steelers were much better on possession down football for this week. Okay, last week against the Chargers, they went 0 for 10 to start the game on 3rd and 4th down. Absolutely abysmal. Could not move the chains whatsoever. Then this week, much better, 8 of 14 in those same situations. So whether it was Rodgers, whether it was Connor Hayward moving forward on a 3rd or a 4th down tush push, whether it was Mason Rudolph moving the chains a couple of times, more than a couple times in the second half, right? So, much better this week. Good job setting these guys up for success, Arthur Smith, and hopefully that trend continues moving forward. But maybe a negative trend here is that jumbo personnel packages for the Steelers might have lost their luster a little bit here. Because they did not have a lot of success running jumbo yesterday, guys. They didn't, especially in the run game or on those 10 jumbo runs that they ran with Spencer Anderson in as a jumbo tight end. Pittsburgh only got 15 yards. And honestly, I didn't think that the offensive line as a whole and up front, the Steelers did a great job run blocking. I really didn't. And that extended into the jumbo personnel looks where they only averaged 1.5 yards on these attempts, and that's just not good enough. I know Jaylen Warren was out for a big portion of this game, and that probably skews the numbers a little bit, but even when Jaylen was out there, they weren't very efficient. I think the most they got on a run in these kinds of situations in this game was 3 yards. That just needs to get better if they're going to continue to make this a big focal point of their offense. Now, something that I did like that Arthur Smith implemented this week is that he implemented some more mesh concepts. Now, the Steelers have had mesh in their playbook for all season long, and they've run it all season, but this week they ran it a little bit more, and what they did that I really liked, and we can just take a look at some play art here of kind of what it looks like. What they would do is they would put Calvin Austin III on kind of that isolated route on the outside, either a corner route, an out route, whatever. They would have Kenneth Gainwell as the running back. They'd put Roman Wilson here at the Z, to run the little sit route there. And then they'd have DK Metcalf in the slot with Darnell Washington at tight end. So what that means is you got two big body guys that can run after the catch, running that mesh. So, the defenses have to pick their poison. Do they want to go with the giant behemoth tight end, or do they want to go with DK Metcalf and guard him instead, the guy that's huge and can run like a deer? I mean, that puts the defense in a really tough spot. I think this is one of the better concepts for the Pittsburgh Steelers personnel, and I hope Arthur Smith saw that on film here this week, and I hope they implement it more and more as the season goes on. This kind of goes into my next point here, my next takeaway, which is that the Steelers offense should use more runaways. All right, how many times have I said this season, guys? Get DK Metcalf the ball with a head of steam, and they did that more this week, and that was good. But you have to get Roman Wilson involved in that game as well. Calvin Austin III. Calvin is completely misused in this offense, in my opinion, because we know that he's a really good yak threat because he's a great punt returner, and he's got great vision, he's got great speed, great quicks, and they just don't get him the ball out over the middle of the field all that often. They run a lot of streaks, they run a lot of stop routes. It's like, no, we want to throw the ball over the middle of the field more, and I know what you're going to say. Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball over the middle of the field, you're crazy, but I feel like if you get those deep crosses going, intermediate crosses, dig routes going, and you let Rodgers throw over the middle of the field a little bit more here, I think that's going to open up a lot of things for this wide receiving core, and it's going to open up a lot of things for this offense in general. Then you get to Roman Wilson in particular, and he got wide receiver 2 reps. I believe the switch has already been made now. All right, this was the big week where Roman Wilson leapfrogged Calvin Austin III by quite a sizable margin here in terms of the snaps that they played. Roman got 37 snaps in this game. Calvin only got 19. So this team is trusting Roman Wilson to be this team's number 2 receiver down the stretch. And with those opportunities, he had 2 targets, 1 catch for 17 yards. Now, I don't think that it was necessarily all Roman's fault that he didn't get more opportunities. I think they kind of schemed him out of the play a lot of times, and I want to see them implement him more and give him more legitimate opportunities to get the football. Now, he has to earn that trust with Aaron Rodgers and with Mason Rudolph, but he proved on that 1 catch that he did have, that 17-yard first down reception on a 3rd and very long, by the way, that, you get him going, pre-snap motion, you get him with a head of steam, you get the ball to him. He's got some snappy routes, man. He's got good hands. I really like what Roman Wilson brings in that regard, and I think he's shown some really good flashes over the last month and a half, and I just hope that Art makes Roman a bigger emphasis in the passing game because, frankly, they need another receiver to generate interest and the kind of respect from opposing defenses moving forward. That's not a tight end. And then the final takeaway that I have is that I think the run game is in good hands moving forward, even if Jaylen Warren is not going to be able to go this week versus Chicago. Jaylen left the game yesterday with an ankle injury, but even when he left, man, Kenneth Gainwell, was the star of the show. And then I think Caleb Johnson has played pretty well as well. So, if Jaylen's not playing, I'd like this setup where you got Caleb Johnson as that bigger early down back, and then Kenny Gainwell can still be that pass-catching type of back, 3rd down guy for you. So even with Jaylen Warren out, I think that one of the strengths of the Steelers offense, and with this room in particular, is that you can take an injury and it's still going to be able to survive, right? So I've really liked what I've seen from Caleb Johnson in particular. I want to give him a shout-out because he hasn't gotten a lot of time, but when he's been out there, he's looked good. He's finding the right lanes to run into. You can just look at the build-up speed as well and the size, and he's moving the pile forward. I'm liking what I'm seeing. He had that stupid face mask penalty yesterday trying to stiff arm a guy, but that's something that's going to get ironed out as the years go on and maybe as the season goes on. So very excited to see what Caleb Johnson's going to do with maybe an increased workload this week in Chicago. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already to help us celebrate Victory Monday. It's always a better feeling talking about the negatives and all the different stuff that needs to be corrected on the Steelers film with a victory. So if you guys want to help out the channel today, if you enjoy this in-depth content and analysis that we give to you guys every single week after Steelers games, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already to help us out. Now we're on to the defensive side of the ball, and I thought the big kind of switch from getting absolutely killed versus the Bengals, the same Bengals offense in Week 7, about a month ago to this week was that the Steelers had more ambiguity, and that forced Joe Flacco to hold the ball longer, which gave the pass rush for the Steelers more opportunities to wreak havoc. All right, in this game, I mean, and this has been a trend over the last 3 weeks ever since they acquired Kyle Duggar. 29 of the 41 pass coverage snaps that the Steelers had were in too high coverage. All right, and what that means is you got the 2 high safeties there pre-snap. And really what the Steelers do is they ask both those guys, Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Duggar, to contribute to run defense, all right, and kind of be cleanup guys. And they're both bigger guys with long arms that can tackle. So that has really worked out. And really the benefit of being in too high is that a quarterback doesn't know what's coming, right? So they have to mentally process a defense post-snap. It could be Tampa 2, or it could be cover 4, or it could be a rotation down to cover 3, or it could be a rotation down to man coverage, cover 1. There's a lot of different things that a defense could be in when they're presenting a too high shell. And that clearly made Joe Flacco think a little bit more. I thought they did a good job limiting those kind of slant routes and those easy kind of completions to Jamar Chase in particular. They doubled him more in this game. I thought they did a good job pressing him in this game, forcing him to get open, not just in the first 2 seconds of the progression. And you guys can see here the average time to throw for Joe Flacco was significantly higher, all right? A 0.3 difference in an average time to throw is massive. And, going from 2.44 to 2.79 is all TJ Watt and this defensive line really needs to be able to force some big mistakes. And you guys see that with the pressure rate where this pass rush put pressure on Flacco about a quarter of the time back in week 7. This week it was over 30%. So that's a much better number. And you guys can see it was completely reflected in the final statistics for Joe Flacco this week compared to week 7, where, in week 7, he was just killing you. 3 touchdowns, no picks, over 340 yards passing, great passer rating. This week, completely different. He had that touchdown on the first drive of the game, and that was it, man. Threw an interception, could have threw even maybe a couple more, less than 200 yards passing, and not a great completion percentage either. So this Steelers defense, I thought that was the biggest difference, is that, Kyle Duggar and Jalen Ramsey at safety allows this defense to be more ambiguous, forcing quarterbacks to hold the ball longer, and that's exactly what they forced Joe Flacco to do in this one. But I will say third down defense is still a little bit shaky for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, we've seen throughout the season where you get their opponent in a 3rd and long, or sometimes even a 3rd and very long, and they end up giving up a first down. That has been one of the bigger weaknesses, in my opinion, for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this season. And in this football game, the Bengals were right around that 50% mark on 3rd downs, which is a pretty high number. They were 7 of 15 on 3rd downs in this ball game. They were 0 for 1 on 4th down, so on possession downs, they were only 7 of 16. So, the Steelers weren't abysmal, in these kinds of situations in this game like they have been in the past, and they were back in week 7, but certainly something that this team can certainly still work on. But then going to some individual performances here, I thought Keanu Benton played phenomenally again. I mean, he has been on an absolute tear these last 3 games. He has been a big reason why this defense and this pass rush has really come alive, because I think this defense has really allowed him and freed him up to play free. And instead of trying to take on 2 gapping assignments and all this different stuff, they've really given more of the run blocking type of alignments to Cam Hayward. And they have said, okay, Keanu Benton, we're going to give you the opportunity to go rush the passer. And he is so quick. He's got great get off. He's got phenomenal hands and violence in his hands and quickness in his hands. And he can just beat these guards and these centers really quickly, get to quarterbacks and force them into bad decisions and get them on the ground as well. I think he has 9 pressures in the last 3 games. That is more than all the other games combined before that. So Keanu Benton is playing the best ball of his career right now, and couldn't be coming at a better time. Also, I thought TJ Watt's presence was felt. Now, when you look at the box score, if you go box score hunting, you're not going to see TJ Watt's name on there a whole lot outside of a couple PBUs and what have you. But, man, he was getting some quick pressure on Flacco, forcing him to get the ball out fast. It was a pressure that he created that forced the interception to Kyle Duggar, the pick 6, that completely changed the feel and the texture of this ball game. So TJ Watt absolutely still getting it done, still a great run defender, still doing a great job speed rushing around the edge. So even though the stat sheet isn't going to show a great day for TJ Watt, rest assured he was out there wreaking havoc. Then on the other side, Nick Herbig was absolutely phenomenal again. He was the only guy on the team that actually got a sack in this game. Flacco was pretty good about getting the ball out when pressure got there. But Herbig is just not going to be denied, man. This guy, you can make an argument. A lot of people do make this argument that he's the best pure pass rusher on the team. And, I think that there's a decent argument to be made for that, just in terms of the speed rush that he brings. Now, I do think that he benefits from the one-on-one opportunities that TJ Watt on the other side presents for him. But in terms of just getting around the edge, his bend and his speed off the ball is incredible, and his instincts is great as well. So I love Nick Herbig. You got to give him a full-time starting job, man. It's just a matter of time at this point. Then Kyle Duggar, I thought he really impressed again, man. This is the third straight week where he's continued to look good. And he should have had 2 pick sixes in this game. A little disappointing, actually. He only had the one because the first one would have been even more impressive. But, he's been somebody that's been a godsend for this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Before he got here, it was Juan Thornhill and Chuck frickin' Clark at safety every single play of every single game, and it was just a giant weakness for this Steelers defense. You inject him, and, he gives you that ambiguity that you look for while also still being able to contain the run. It's really been a game-changing acquisition from the con artist, and he deserves a lot of credit for adding Kyle Duggar, especially for the price tag they got him at. Then Jalen Ramsey, man, what can I say? He's an awesome safety. Absolutely awesome safety. And, he was letting Jamar Chase know, you're not coming over the middle of the field today multiple times. Big hits, all this different stuff. He just plays with phenomenal instincts. His trigger is just awesome. He knows what opposing offenses are trying to do to the defense, and he just plays so instinctively. And, people talk about anticipation from quarterbacks, but really, if you can anticipate as a defender, that is a game-changing trait, and that's what Jalen Ramsey brings to the table. He's not the most physically, gifted player in the league anymore in terms of, staying with guys one-on-one and press man coverage. We saw that in the first matchup where he got toasted by Jamar Chase. But in this game, man, his instincts as a safety and his physicality really showed up big time. Now, for whatever reason, the Pittsburgh Steelers just don't trust Jabril Peppers to play safety. They put Chuck Clark in there when Jalen Ramsey had to leave the game with the ejection. I don't get that. Peppers played great at safety in the lone game. He was allowed to play safety against the New England Patriots back in week 3, but they've kind of just delegated him to special teams duties at this point. So if you're not going to play Peppers and if 40's not going to be out there and the choice is, okay, Jalen Ramsey or Chuck Clark, you guys know what my answer is going to be. It's going to be Jalen freaking Ramsey, all right? He's absolutely awesome there, and I completely understand, and frankly, I agree with the philosophy of if it's not broken, don't fix it. Keep Jalen Ramsey at safety, and also I want to give a big shout out here to Brandon Echols, who played great in the slot. All right, his first 2 games starting there, Colts, then the Chargers, didn't really play great there, if I'm being completely honest. Lost a lot of man coverage, all that stuff. In this game, man, they asked him to do a lot, all right, a lot. They blitzed him. They moved him around. They used him as a chess piece in the slot, and he was really good in coverage as well. So that kind of segues me here into my final film takeaway of the day, which is that the cornerback trio for the Steelers was absolutely locked down in this ballgame, all right? And I know James Pierre is the one that's getting all, the love right now, and for good reason. James was great yesterday. But Joey Porter Jr. was great as well. Multiple pass breakups on Jamar Chase and one-on-one man coverage. And Brandon Echols was phenomenal in the slot. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins weren't really able to do much the entire game, all right? And outside of that long touchdown that T. Higgins caught, there really wasn't much that he had in this game. Jamar Chase was targeted 10 times and only had a 30% catch rate. That's because the coverage on him was so goddamn good, all right? So, phenomenal job from the Steelers secondary. Couldn't give them enough praise. It actually looks like the Steelers may have a legitimate cornerback trio at this point and a legitimate safety duo, which is crazy to say, based on where this team was the last time they played the Cincinnati Bengals back in week 7. And I think that right now this defense is playing at a top 10 level for sure right now, arguably top 5, because you got a pass rush, you've got linebackers that are athletic and can make plays, and then you've got a secondary that can cover now. You can sit in 2 high coverages and still defend the run. Like, the Steelers really have a great setup right now, in my opinion, guys, and I think you can make a really good argument they're a top 5 offense. I don't think there's an argument that you can make to convince me they're not a top 10 defense at this point in time. So true or false? Down there in the comments section, let me know. Do the Steelers have a top 5 defense in the NFL right now? Type T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. I know it was a longer one. Usually these film analysis videos are pretty beastly, but we had a lot to talk about today, guys, and I appreciate you sitting there and listening to me ranting about this football team. You guys are the absolute best. I will see you guys tomorrow with our preview for Week 12 versus the Chicago Bears right here on Steelers Talk.